He has positioned himself as a professional public speaker and has presented over 50 speeches to diverse audiences and people from all walks of life. His inspirational and purposeful talks are aimed at up-and-coming entrepreneurs, helping them to make the transition from a job to owning their own business. He's also conducted seminars on how to become a better public speaker. He's also developed a drug and alcohol awareness program aimed at K through 12 and college. After his speeches, he'll be available to answer any questions you may have, and will give you information on how you can book him for your next event. Yay.
Wonderful.
His speech is out of the Better Speakers series. He's going to educate us about concluding his speech. I left my hat down, sorry. His speech title is Concluding. His speech, it's 8 to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Good morning, Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Good morning. A conclusion is important to the success of any speech. All too often, an otherwise excellent speech loses its effectiveness because of a poor closing. A speech that ends well, or ends with, well, that's about it. Or, oh, is that the red card? Gee, I guess I've run out of time. Does not leave a lasting impression. People remember the last thing they hear more than the body or the beginning of a speech. You must strive to conclude your speech positively and forcefully. And today we are going to discuss the criteria for doing just that. A successful speech conclusions meet the 4 criteria. Achieve a sense of closure. People need closure. Summarize your main points. As Bill Mortimer said, you tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them, and then you summarize your main points by telling them what you told them. This is Sales 101. It's the basic building blocks of a fantastic speech. You want to make an impact. You take only 5 to 10% of your speech for the closing. And now let's take a closer look at these criteria. Achieve a sense of closure. A speech without a proper conclusion is much like a joke without a proper punchline. People need and expect closure. An effective closing signals to the audience that your speech is ending and reminds them to pay attention to your final words. Phrases and statements such as, in conclusion, let me end by saying, and in summary are common ways of telling listeners you will be ending your speech, and it leads them to the closure. An effective conclusion repeats and previews key points developed in your speech. Repetition reinforces your speech's message. Make a good ending. A good ending makes a lasting impression to your audience. And as I mentioned earlier, people remember longest the last thing they hear. After a few weeks, no one's going to remember you, but they are going to remember your story and the conclusion of your speech. Especially if you leave them with a striking, forceful, or meaningful ending. Most of your allotted speaking time should be spent on the body of your speech. Your conclusion should take only 5 to 10% of your entire speech. For example, a 10-minute speech should only have a 30 to 60-second closing. Let's talk about closing techniques. Now that you know what a conclusion needs to accomplish, let us take a look at 6 techniques that will help you create a good speech ending. Use properly a quotation. Can add authority to your closing. Amuse your listeners or dramatize your speech points. Whatever you choose. Keep it short and related directly to your speech topic. For example, a presentation that is encouraging people to become concerned about the future environment could close with George Bernard Shaw's words. Some men see things as they are and ask why. I dare to see things as they are not and ask why not. A powerful story or anecdote can make a memorable close. It can be inspirational or funny, but it should be short, develop quickly, and be related to or reinforce your speech's message. And personalize it if it's possible. If your speech was intended to persuade or urge listeners for a call of action, or take some kind of action, you should use a closing statement. It should clearly explain what the action they should take. You could conclude your speech about drug abuse prevention by saying, educating our young people is up to you. It begins with you. After you leave here this morning, I urge you to go home and talk to your children. Tell them you love them, that you are concerned for them, and talk to them about drugs. Because I can tell you from personal experience, at the age of 14, they either know someone who is doing drugs, are doing drugs themselves already, or are wise enough because of your counsel to say no thanks. End a speech by asking one question or a sense of questions that relate to the speech topic. The audience will think about an answer, and thus they will think about your speech. For example, you could conclude by saying, you may ask, can we afford to do this? Or, can we afford not to? Tie your closing words to the beginning of your speech. You could say, I began my remarks reviewing the challenges our company must confront if we are to continue to be successful in this challenging economy. I believe these challenges provide opportunities for each of us as individuals to learn and grow. Let's not be afraid of these challenges. Let's welcome them as an opportunity for our company to move forward. You need to summarize your main points. Repeat the points presented in the body of the speech. And as I mentioned, repetition reinforces your message. For example, you could conclude by saying, remember, please, the 3 keys to making this program work. Understanding. Number 2 is commitment. And number 3 is teamwork. And only when we know all the 3 keys and commit to using them will we work together and achieve our goal. Your tips for success. You can do several things to ensure your speech ends forcefully. Write out the conclusion and then memorize it. A memorized, polished conclusion enables you to end confidently and add impact to your speech. End on time. This is something we practice in Toastmasters. I saw a speech contest recently where my friend Robert Bentley stole the show. He won 2nd place because he was 5 seconds over time. 5 seconds. He had won this hands down. You need to refrain from adding new points. Your point should be in the body of your speech. Occasionally, you may forget to mention the point in the body of your speech, and bringing it up at the conclusion detracts from a great conclusion and a forceful ending. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes an otherwise excellent speech loses its effectiveness because of a poor closing. Don't let this happen to you. You have taken way too much time, put way too much creative effort into it to bomb out at the end. You want to leave your audience with a favorable impression. Don't risk it. Know your closing. Make a lasting impact. Use some of the methods discussed today to conclude your speech positively and forcefully. I ask you, how does going to war to kill the people that are killing people stop the killing of people, Madam Toastmaster?